All right, everybody, welcome. It's great to see a lot of people on the call. Thank you very much for attending. This is Tammy Kabell from Career Resume Consulting. I want to welcome everybody to today's installment of my Six-Figure Pro series of job search webinars. And so today I'll be sharing with you how to create an elevator speech that will get your audience to think to themselves, I know exactly the person you should be talking to. Or maybe even, I really want to know more about you. Plus, how to introduce yourself in a memorable way to a hiring manager when they call you or meet you for the first time. So I do want to welcome, first of all, I want to welcome the 74 people, new people that have signed up to listen to this webinar series since the last call. So I really appreciate you joining us either live, got a lot of people on the phone and about twice as many online listening to us, or if you listen to us later, listen to me later on just a replay, because I'll be sending you, if you don't have all of your notes, I'll be sending you the replay link later on. You can also hear my past webinars by visiting YouTube and searching for my name, Tammy Kabell. I've got my own channel, and there's about 14 hours of instruction on how to find a six-figure job in weeks and not months, and how to position yourself to be paid what you're worth. Give me just a second to take a drink here. All right. So let me introduce myself a little bit, because I know that there are a lot of people that signed up that have not heard me speak and that don't really know a whole lot about me. So I'm the owner of an executive career firm in the Kansas City area. I'm actually located in Lee Summit, and the firm is called Career Resume Consulting, and we do executive branding for job searching, and we do resume writing and also full-service executive career services. And I like to say that I help my clients land six-figure jobs in weeks and not months. And that's because the majority of my executive search clients started positions, new positions within 10 weeks or less. And also I've spent about 9 years as an expert in the career field and about 18 years experience as a hiring manager. And I've been featured as an expert multiple times in the Wall Street Journal and on MSNBC, Monster.com, CareerBuilder.com, Ladders, Kansas City Star, a lot of places. And most recently, this is the last plug I'll do, I've been given the wonderful honor of being the resident job search expert for a local radio station here, KCMO 710 AM, talk radio. And I host a Monday morning job market minute that talks about six-figure job seeking and gives one tip a week. And it's every Monday at 7:49 in the morning. You can also hear those online on my YouTube channel as well. So before we get started, a couple of housekeeping items. I want to tell you, if you're on the phone, and it looks like we've got a lot of people here today. If you're on the phone and you want to raise your hand, if I ask you if you'd like to be coached through a particular subject today, or if you have a question, you press *2, and that will raise your hand on my console, my dashboard, and I can unmute you. Everybody else is muted, and so if you're coughing or have a dog barking, nobody else can hear you. And if you're online, because I do see a ton of people online listening right now. If you're online and you have questions, feel free to type those in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. So you can type those in at any time. It doesn't have to be when I'm asking for questions. So feel free as you're listening to this, if you have questions, please type them in. And also, if you haven't done so already, please go to my website to view and to download and to print off the 2 supplemental documents that we're going to be talking about in today's webinar. So you go to careerresumeconsulting.com/teleclass-goodies.php. And if you're online, you can actually see that link, and you copy and paste that into a web browser, and it will take you to that download page. Teleclass is TELECLASS-goodies, GOODIES.php. It's important that you have these because we're going to be going over these. This is going to be a workshop kind of thing, and so I want you to have those so that you can work through your own audio business card, your own compelling introduction, and then also your own answer to what you would say to an employer when you're first introducing yourself, which is so very important. I also want you to get ready to take some notes. You'll be able to listen to it later. Like I said, I'll send you a link. But you'll absorb it better if you're listening live, you're taking notes as we go, and you'll be able to ask me questions as we go. Okay? Be thinking of those questions you want to ask me. The reason that I wanted to put this particular webinar together to cover this subject is because having the opportunity to introduce yourself is a great, great thing. It's your chance to let at least one person know that you're in the job market. And sometimes it's in a group environment. You know, it can be an incredible opportunity. If you're talking to the right person, if you're talking to what I would consider a center of influence, in other words, someone that knows a lot of people that might be decision makers for you, hiring managers, then it's an incredible opportunity. But most people that I talk to about the subject really cringe at the thought of how to introduce themselves properly. And I've been to enough networking meetings and job club meetings that I have heard a lot of people introducing themselves in a not-so-compelling way. So I want you to be able to be prepared when it's time to network or when you're having any kind of conversation, when you're introducing yourself and telling people what you do. And that's why I put this together, so that you can learn that you can be equipped when you go out there, not only in networking but also in interviews. When it comes to introducing yourself to a hiring manager or to a decision maker, you really only get one chance. And what you say when they say, so tell me about yourself, what you say in that answer positions you as either just another candidate or the answer to their needs and exactly what they were looking for. So it's really, really important that you have that prepared, not necessarily scripted word for word, but that you know what you're going to say. And when you go into an interview knowing what you're going to say, you feel a lot less stress, and it makes the interview go better because you're much more confident going in there. So here's what we're going to be going over this hour. It's really going to be packed. The first thing I'm going to show you is I'm going to tell you the 5 deadly self-introduction errors that I see. And then secondly, I'll walk you through how to introduce yourself in a way that you'll be remembered. And I'll also give you the opportunity, if you want, to try out your new audio business card and to get some free personal coaching from me on how to make it better. And I promise I'll keep you anonymous if you'd like. And then I'll also show you the right way to introduce yourself in the interview. And, of course, this can be in a phone interview or a face-to-face interview the first time they meet you. But essentially, it's what you say when an employer says, so tell me about yourself. And then, of course, if you'd like, we can walk through your example, and I can make suggestions on how to make it more compelling. So this is an opportunity to get some free coaching from me, and I would be very happy to help anybody who raised their hands. If you're listening online, there is the phone number, the dial-in number. I recommend, if you would like to be coached on either one of these exercises we're going to do today, to call in and raise your hand so we can talk back and forth, because I've tried to do it online, and it's pretty difficult to do. So I'm going to tell you why the formula that I'm going to show you to answer the tell me about yourself question is really key to taking control of the interview and talking about what you're prepared to talk about. And then if we have time in this hour, I'd like to answer any additional questions that you might have about networking or interviewing. So again, be thinking of those burning questions you might have in those areas. And if you're on the phone, you can press star 2 at any time, and then when I get to the question time, be happy to call on you. So let's start with the 5 deadly self-introduction errors. The first I see is the label. Almost everyone uses the label. And what I mean by that is you say, I'm a marketing director, or I'm VP of sales, or I'm looking for a controller position. And you're thinking, how can I get around that? Well, I'm going to show you how to get around it. Really, when you give yourself that label, you're putting yourself in a box. And it's a pretty small box, because when you say, I'm looking for a VP of sales position, what the other person hears, or what the other person is thinking is, well, I'd like to help this guy out. Do I know a company that has a VP of sales title, a job open? Can I help this guy? And usually they don't know of anybody that's hiring specifically for a VP of sales position. And so when you say you're looking for exactly that position, that's where their mind goes, and it's a pretty small box. So number 2 is the trap. When you answer with what you do for a living, honestly, people don't really want to know what you do. They want to know, do I need to know you? And that's the question that you've got to answer. We'll go over that in a little bit. The third that I see, and I hear this quite a bit, TMI. In other words, self-introductions need to be brief. You really only have a few seconds to grab their attention. And people make the mistake of wanting to tell other people not only what they do, but how they do it. And I've even heard some introductions give some of their biggest accomplishments. That's actually too much information too soon. It should be very brief, it should be very compelling, and it should make the listener want to hear more about you. Okay? So the fourth, I call the Z's. It's a dull self-intro, or talking about things and not about people, or talking about your self-interest, and oftentimes it's things that no one understands, and it's spoken in jargon. I hear this, and no offense to anybody, but I hear this a lot from IT professionals. I hear it a lot from engineers. When you're using jargon, especially if you've been in one career, in one industry all of your career, you've really got to watch that jargon, because you may not even know it's jargon, but that's not a word that other people use outside of your industry. And I could come up with a lot of examples, but you might be thinking about your situation, and do you speak in jargon? Do you speak so that other people outside of your industry don't know what you're talking about? You may see the opportunity to introduce yourself, whether it be one-on-one or in a group, as similar to your objective statement on your resume, but only in verbal form. But if you've been listening to me in other webinars and you've heard me speak, you know that the objective statement in a resume is really dead. It's not really about what you want and what your objective is in your career. It's about what's in it for the audience. One of the 60-second informational radio spots that I did a while back was called WIIFM. In other words, hiring managers, decision makers, and really anybody that's listening to you, it's all about what's in it for me. That's WIIFM. It's got to be relatable to your audience, and you have to think about what is it that they want to hear, and not necessarily what is it that you want to get out of your mouth. And then number 5 of the deadly mistakes is being generic, saying something that 30 other people in the room could say. You really need to make it unique and special and personal. Because if you just say, well, you know, I've got 15 years of experience in accounting and I'm looking for an accounting manager position. You know, boring. They really can't help you if they don't know anything more about you. There could be 15 other people that are saying that exact same thing, plus or minus 1 or 2 years of experience. And when they leave that networking meeting, how are they going to remember you? What really sets you apart? Okay? So let's move on to what I call the ABC, or the audio business card. I consider it an attention-grabbing introduction. Okay? Let's go ahead and pull up. I'm going to do the same. We're now going to pull up the worksheet. And that worksheet is called your audio business card. Again, you can find it on my website and download it. And this is a worksheet that I want you to work through as I'm talking. Okay? Really a good introduction in a one-on-one conversation, and I have had people use this in a group setting as well. It typically mentions 3 things, and this is really what makes it special. First of all, you have to define who it is that you want to work for. And by that, I mean a size company, possibly the industry of your perfect employer. So a mid-size company or a small to mid-size company, you can say something like that, in the agriculture industry or in the transportation industry, okay? Define who it is that you're wanting to work with. Number 2, you would identify what their core problem is that you are able to fill. So think about what you are best at. What is it that you can do better than anyone else? And what is that core problem of the perfect company that you want to work for? What problem would you be solving? So you could say something like companies that have a need for, and then you give that need, or that have a difficulty of some kind. You want to articulate that pretty succinctly. And then number 3, you would mention the benefits of hiring you. So I've got on this example that they'd get somebody that can cut through the clutter of their operations to streamline their most important processes. Okay? So I've got an example on here. And if you're a marketing manager, it might be someone who's really good at branding. So when they say, well, what do you do? I like to start it out with, well, you know how, kind of like an Andy Rooney kind of thing. Well, you know how a lot of small businesses in the technology field have a new product coming out, but they really don't have any idea how to market it or how to sell it. Well, that's my specialty. I can take a software product, even from inception, brand it, and create a marketing campaign around it in order to help that company grow really fast. So that's what I do. Now, think about that from an audience's standpoint. Now, instead of thinking, well, do I know somebody with a marketing manager open position, now they're thinking, well, do I know a small business in the technology field? A lot of small businesses in the technology field have new products or services, software as service or something like that, coming out. And so now it opens up exponentially. So a lot of small businesses, now I'm thinking small businesses in the technology field. So now as someone who is listening to you, I'm thinking, how can I help this person? Who do I know that has or works for a small technology business? Really opens it up. And I like to think that you can morph it a little bit, adjust it a little bit based on your audience. So if your audience is, let's say, if you're open to some industries, if your audience, the person that you're talking with, if it's a one-on-one conversation, if they're from XYZ industry, then you can say, well, you know how a lot of small to mid-sized businesses in the XYZ industry have a new product or service coming out. So that could be the option if you're open to different industries. So let me take a look here. Okay. So, going back to my notes, I did want to say that I find it really funny that some people spend a lot of time working on their business cards. When they go into a meeting, they don't have a clue how to introduce themselves properly. And I have also had people use this introduction in an interview. And I'll give you a story about that. I had a gentleman who used he actually used it with a friend first, and it felt kind of a little disjointed, but it came out okay. That friend was kind of taken aback. He was a little bit surprised, and then he smiled. He said, wow, that's one heck of an introduction. And so he decided to use it on the first interview that he had after working with me. It was about into his 5th or 6th week. He got his first interview, and he used it as his introduction. And the guy at the other end of the table was really impressed, so much so that he ended up hiring him about a week and a half later. And it's all about positioning yourself, okay? And I also think that this allows you to instantly grab the attention from your conversation partners. Is some other things that I want to mention before we get into some coaching about this, because I want to give you a few minutes to kind of work on yours. Something else that I want to mention is that I find a lot of people in networking meetings try to be interesting instead of being interested. So let's talk about that for a second. There's a really big difference. I'll give you an example. So an example I want to share is that I was working a booth at a career expo. This was about a year and a half ago. And a guy came up to me, and he literally talked for 20 minutes straight. He didn't know what I did, but I certainly found out what he did. I really couldn't get in a word edgewise. And he didn't even ask me a single question. He just made an assumption of what I did, and he kept going on about the new challenges he was looking for and what important school he went to get his MBA and what his grades were and what his professor said about him during his MBA. And I'm like, why are you telling me all this? And especially because he didn't really know what I did. He's going into a great amount of detail. And really, it turns out that he thought I was a recruiter. He was just making an assumption. And he wanted me to connect him with a job. So there's 20 minutes of his time, 20 minutes of my time that really we didn't need to spend because he wasn't asking me about myself. And I think that's what a lot of people do. They see networking opportunities as a time to give their objective statement. And I like to think of it as, once they turn themselves on and they're in a networking group, they show up and then they just throw up, verbally. Just get all of it out there. They say everything that there is to know about their career, but until you make a connection, nobody cares about your career. So it really is, for a couple of reasons, it's best to try to get to know someone a little bit and develop some quick rapport before introducing yourself. So you can ask some thought-provoking questions or forward-thinking questions. And in a moment, I'll get to why this has anything to do with your audio business card. Some of the forward-thinking questions are, you can ask them what they do, of course. You can ask them what industry they're in, what type of company have they worked for, what they like best about their job, and maybe it's the last job they had or what they're looking for next if they're searching. Because you can tailor your introduction to your audience by finding out about them first.